Hello and welcome back to Talking Europe. A challenge that European democracies are totally unprepared for. That was the reaction of one MEP to images that recently went viral on social media. These pictures, generated by artificial intelligence, purport to show French President Emmanuel Macron collecting rubbish and former US President Donald Trump being arrested. In both cases, the context is real, a rubbish collector's strike in France, the indictment of Donald Trump, but the images are not. Now, this is actually fairly simple for AI to produce, but the more advanced innovations have prompted 1,000 entrepreneurs in America to sign an open letter urging an end to giant AI experiments. If this doesn't happen, they say, the dangers are way past human imagination. Well, on this side of the Atlantic, the EU Parliament, Commission and Council are hashing out an artificial intelligence act which aims to set out some boundaries and regulations. To discuss all of this, I'm joined by Dragoș Tudorache, a Romanian MEP from the centrist Renew Group, who is rapporteur of the Harmonized Rules of Artificial Intelligence report. Welcome to you. Also joined by Axel Voss, a German MEP from the centre-right European People's Party, who is a shadow rapporteur on that same report. Welcome to you as well. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being my guests. When you see those images that we just saw in that introduction, do you think that in Europe people are ready for what's about to hit them? Axel Voss first.
So at first we have to learn that we have to live with all these fakes and images. In a way, the problem now is how we can prepare our citizens to be, in a way, more criticizing these, or to get aware if this is wrong or if this is right, this is correct. And this is how we have to think about, and that's why it's good that we are taking the first step in regulating AI in a way, but this is not hindering everything.
Dragoș Tudorache, what do you think about this? These images, which are obviously being used as actual disinformation. This is part of information warfare in the world today. Is there anything that one can really do about this?
Well, it is, and we do something about this, but it's a good example because it shows the fundamental logic that we are following at EU level in trying to set some rules for how artificial intelligence algorithms are to be used in our economies, in our societies, because it shows that technology in itself is neutral. What matters and what you need to control and regulate, and this is what we are trying to do right now, is how it is used. So the same fake image could be used for fun, for artistic purposes, and in that case, it does not produce that harm to society that we are discussing, or it can be used to manipulate and use for disinformation, and that's something that we need to control.
In the case of images that are meant to actually manipulate people, though, how do you respond to that? Is it by demanding more regulation by the actual social media platforms? Or do you just say to people, well, it's up to you to use your own intelligence to decide whether this is true or not? What do you think?
So far, I would say if you are meeting people with a bad intention, you can't hinder them at all. So we have to live with it somehow, but also we have to ask for more transparency or making this more clear, describing these, that this is a fake. But also here we can't really control everything. So what we are doing is just, if you are handling AI, then do it in such a way. But if you have a totally different intention, then probably nothing is working.
So give us some examples of what categories the European Parliament is looking at as to what is high-risk AI and what is not such high risk, because this is the core of your negotiations at the moment, isn't it?
So the proposal of the Commission already listed several categories of AI algorithms that would be considered high risk. And that is the famous, by now, for those that are paying attention to our negotiations, Annex 3 of the text, where you have a list of areas. For example, AI used in certain education context, AI used in certain credit scoring context, AI used for biometric identification in certain contexts. So some categories which we are now working on, we are adding some categories, we are clarifying some of those definitions.
Social scoring, explain.
Credit scoring, for example,
Credit
by
scoring.
banks or by insurance purposes, because social scoring as such is something that we are listing as prohibited practices, because this is something that we consider to be so controversial and so detrimental to the values that we hold dear in Europe, that we believe that such use of artificial intelligence for social scoring is something that we cannot accept to have in our societies. So there are gradients of risk that the regulation deals with, which are either considered to be, again, prohibited or high risk, and therefore they will need to go through certain compliance requirements.
Axel Voss, what about ChatGPT, which is the focus of so much attention at the moment, which can be used for good purposes or bad purposes? Is it a high risk AI or not?
Yeah, difficult to say. So far, we haven't discussed these at all in our round of negotiators. But at first, this is a text generator. So normally, I would say it is not a kind of a high-risky tool, but the results might be, in a way, somehow risky. And that's why we have to think about what we would like to have. I think with our AI Act, we can't really control ChatGPT. We can just say high risk, and then we have safeguards in place, but that's it.
Do you agree on that last point about regulating ChatGPT specifically as high risk or not?
Well, I do think that we not only have an opportunity right now, but I would also say we have a duty not to let it on the buy side. I think particularly the evolution of the last couple of months have shown that this is a reality that we cannot ignore. I think the letter, you mentioned the letter of the 1,000 AI experts or business leaders, I think it shows that the society is right now very preoccupied by this topic. So again, since we are working on this text, I think that we can find a way. I also agree with my colleague that simply labeling ChatGPT or large language models in general as high risk is not the solution. I think we have to recognize for what they are. They are a specific breed of AI with specific characteristics that have to do with the fact that they don't have initially a general, a specific purpose, but they can be used for many applications that can become high risk.
They could be used for disinformation, for example.
Which is why I think there needs to be a set of rules that apply to these, and this is something that we're going to discuss in the coming days to see if we can agree on what these set of rules might be.
Well, gentlemen, as a journalist, I can't resist asking for your reactions about the first artificial intelligence generated news presenter who made her, if we can say her in quotes, her debut in Kuwait a few days ago. Have a look at this. This is Feda presenting the news in Arabic.
أنا فضة. أول مذيعة في الكويت تعمل بالذكاء الاصطناعي في مؤسسة كويت نيوز الإعلامية. ما هي نوعية الأخبار التي تفضلونها؟ لنسمع آراءكم.
Would you be willing to have this kind of debate with Feda instead of with me?
So it would be an experience and a challenge, but also here we have always to make clear what is fake and what not. And so if she's talking to us, then of course the audience should know what it is and how it is.
But say she, obviously she's still developing, right? But if she is able to be much more high performance than she is now, would you say, well, that's fine, maybe we don't need news presenters who are humans anymore? What do you think?
Well, I think there is a certain degree of inevitability in the fact that we are going to see Feda and the likes of Feda, or basically we're going to see AI living next to us in many of the jobs that we do today. But will they replace us altogether? I don't think so. There will always be a need for a human touch. You being here, being able to adapt to our replies, to the way the discussion goes, this is something that I believe in many years to come, AI will not be able to perform.
So you wouldn't be in favor of trying to regulate to stop actual professions dying out because of AI? You would say, well, let's see how things go first of all.
I don't think we need to regulate that. I think, again, the market and the evolution of technology and how it's going to interplay with the labor market is going to create its own rules and its own pace of evolution. Of course, and I think we also have to be realistic and we have to talk to the labor force, to our societies, and explain to them that yes, many jobs will be impacted by AI, but not necessarily in a bad way. Much of the repetitive work that is now bread and butter for many of the jobs will be done away by AI, but that would allow for creative part, for our emotional part to be maybe amplified in the overall output of our job. So yes, again, it will require adaptation. It will require understanding what AI can do to the job environment in which we all perform. But will they force us out of certain professions? I think we'll just need to adapt more than be kicked out.
What do you think about AI actually replacing whole professions? What's your take on that?
So in these days, I wouldn't say no. We haven't reached this level of AI profession. But I totally agree with Dragos in this case. I think the changes and challenges what we are facing will bring us to a certain point, and then we might see if this might be a problem.
So you would just wait and see what happens rather than try to sort of foresee some kind of regulation on certain professions that might be threatened?
Yes, so what we have said in the AIDA report already is that education is the key point to this. If you have well-educated citizens, then you do not have to fear that your replacement by AI in your worker conditions, and so might be necessary. So it's just a question of education.
So better skills for young people in
Yes.
the key industries of the future, for example?
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll have to end it there. Thank you so much to Axel Voss and Dragos Tudorake. And that's all for this episode of Talking Europe. Thanks very much for following us.